Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name's Shadowwraith, and today I'm going to finally finish, well, nearly finish, the series I was doing on how to win each of the scenarios from the main rulebook for Middle-earth strategy battle game. And it's basically just giving my tips and opinions on what kind of army you want to run and what kind of tactics you might want to play. And then the final video, which will be after this one, is my ideal army that can work really well over all of the scenarios, really. So it'll be as generic as I can be, but the type of list you want to build ready for these scenarios. So, we are on scenario 10, Heirloom of Ages Past. Basically, the layout is normal terrain and that, and then you place 6 objective markers on the battlefield. And you both roll a d6. Whoever wins the roll-off gets to place the first objective. And it's got to be 6 inches away from a board edge and at least 12 inches away from any existing objectives. And that's it. You just keep going back and forth until all the objectives are down. So, starting positions, your forces don't arrive on the battlefield yet. So we've got reinforcement rolls in play here. And you basically roll off priority, and then at the start of your move phase, you roll for each warband. Okay? Nice and complicated. But what we want to know is how to win. What is the objectives? So, basically, the game lasts until one force has been reduced to 25% of its starting number of models. And at which point, whoever's got the most VPs, calculated at the end, wins the game. Happy days. But you can draw. It is possible to draw in this scenario. So, the victory points are scored as follows. You score 6 victory points if your force is in possession of the relic at the end of the game. If at the end of the game you are not in possession of the relic but have more models within 3 than your opponent, you instead score 3. So that's pretty good. You score 1 for causing a wound on enemy leader, 2 if you kill the enemy leader, and 1 victory point if the enemy force is broken, 2 if you are unbroken but your enemy is, and you score an extra victory point if you have at least 1 banner remaining in the game. And you score 2 if your opponent does not have a banner, but you do. But how does uncovering the relic work? Well, basically, you can use the first time an unengaged infantry model ends its movement in base contact with an objective, you can attempt to search. You roll a d6. You can't use might to alter this. On 1 to 5, the relic is not there, and you remove that marker. On a 6, however, you found the relic, and you can then pick it up, and it's treated as a light object. However, it's an evil light object, because at the start of the turn, before priority is rolled, you roll a d6 for that model. On a 1, the model is transfixed. Again, you may not use might, and like I said, reinforcement rolls are in play, so you roll a d6 for each of your warbands. You can affect it with might to make it go up or down, but the results are, if you roll a 1, you don't arrive. 2, opponent chooses a point on either the north or south board edge at least 6 inches away from the corner. 3, opponent chooses east or west, same as above. 4, so 4 plus is where you can start choosing. You can choose a point on either north or south. 5 is east or west, and 6 is any point, as long as it's at least 6 inches away from a corner. Yeah, that's pretty good. The only downside is if you keep rolling 1s, you're screwed, but you can use might to affect this, like I said. So, yeah, and before the game starts, you have to pick which side, what board edge is going to be, north, east, south, or west. Nice and easy, but it can get a bit complicated. I do find this scenario take quite a while to set up, just because of all this. Yeah, but then again, it's not as simple as you have a 12-inch deployment zone. So, what kind of army do we need to win with this? Well, you definitely need infantry models. That's not too hard to get. And you definitely want to have a banner. That's definitely one thing you want to have. And I always suggest bringing a banner, because banners are awesome. They're quite expensive, but they're awesome. Even better if you can get one of those heroes that is carrying a banner, so not King Elisar, where he counts as a banner. You want a physical banner, so like the Serpent King, he has a banner. And it's awesome, it's 6-inch range, but he counts as having a banner as well, because he's physically got it. So that's the ideal kind of banner you want, in my opinion, because he's a tough as nails leader, and he's not going to go down easy. Not like a banner who can get quickly sniped if you're not careful. Then you really want, you want a fast army. So an army that I've seen do really well with this is Isengard, and the where you can have Merher or Malher. Let me know in the comments how you say it, like spell out phonetically, but Merher, I'll call him. And you can upgrade your Uruk-hai scouts to be Marauders for an extra point, and they get a movement of 8 inches rather than 6, which is fantastic. Alongside a war drum, or even a heroic march, you don't need a war drum for this, they shoot across the battlefield. So you're going 11 inches because you plus 3 to that, which is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. You're going faster than cavalry at that point. So if you do that, and you grab as many of the objectives as you can, and roll to see if you get the relic, you could be really lucky and roll an early 6, in which case that puts the enemy on the assault, and you can defend. And I find it a lot easier to defend than try and grab the objective off the enemy. Also, it's a double-edged blade, because if you go to, say, 4 of the objectives closest to you, and you don't roll a 6, you know it's in the last 2 that might be closer to the enemy. In which case, yeah, because if you don't roll a 6 for 5 of the objectives, the last one is automatically the relic. So you got to be careful there. But they work really well, because they're infantry and they're fast as hell. So, yeah, and you can have banners. You can't have a banner hero, if that makes sense, but you can have banners, definitely. And, if you really want to try and cheese those points, just don't put your banner in anywhere near harm's way, and you can guarantee yourself those points. The other kind of hero you want is you've got a few heroes that can alter the reinforcement roll. Like Iron Hills just get it as standard as an army bonus. They can +1 or -1 to warbands rolls for the reinforcement table, which is fantastic. But you do have some other heroes that can do it as well, like Madril for Gondor, Minas Tirith. He gets to alter his warbands reinforcement roll by +1 or -1, and once he's on the battlefield, all others that are yet to come on get to +1 or -1 to their roll. And there's another hero that can do it as well. But yeah, ideal. If you can fit one of them in, it's absolutely perfect, because in events there's almost always one of these kind of reinforcement scenarios, and that advantage is massive. You get Madril straight on. First warband that you pick, because you can alter it, and then that's it. The rest of your warband have a bit more leeway, because yeah, it's massive. And you can still use might, but you basically get a free point of might on top of that if you need to alter it by 2. And you don't really need to alter it more than 2 unless you're really unlucky and roll a 1. So yeah, the tactic I'd probably pick, it's quite risky to assume your enemy is not going to roll a 6 on his objectives, so I'd still grab your objectives as quickly as you can. Saying that, rather than rolling straight away, I'd probably defend them with whatever you can. If you've got any fast infantry or cavalry, defend them and screen those objectives with your cavalry and infantry to catch up, and they can hold them. And you can let your opponent, because you're not going to get to his end of the board, because he's going to roll either way. You can wait for him to roll and see if he rolls a 6. If he doesn't on the 2, let's say, because you're quite fast, that he can get to quite easily, then you've got a much better chance of having it in your grasp. The odds are in your favour. Okay, so it's a big payoff, high risk, high reward. Because if he rolls a 6 on his back objective, there's nothing you can do about it anyway, so you might as well play the way I've just said. That's how I find is a good way to play it, and it's quite easy to defend objectives, I think. But yeah, so yeah, obviously Isengard's going to be quite good for this scenario with the fast scouts, and they've got Wild Riders. Anything with cavalry is ideal, so Serpent Horde can do this because they've got pretty cheap cavalry. Fiefdoms are pretty good, obviously, with the cavalry, and they've all got access to banners. The only ones that tend to struggle a bit more, I find, are the more hoardy armies that don't have a lot of good heroes or access to banners or cavalry. So Goblin Town could struggle. They do have the Scribe to teleport goblins. Well, not teleport, just bring on more goblins from board edges. But still, they're not quick. They're still movement 5 because they're goblins. Anyway, moving on. We have got Fog of War. This one is really simple. Basically, you've got a 12-inch deployment zone. Roll off and you deploy your warbands. And then, before the game starts, or at the start of the game, you secretly note down one of your own heroes that may not be your leader unless that's the only hero you have, to protect. So you don't want them to die, you keep them alive for the game. You note down one of the enemy's heroes, and it can't be their leader unless it's the only hero model they have. To kill, so your assassination target, and then you pick a single piece of terrain in your opponent's half of the board. Half of the board, that is, not deployment zone, half of the board. And you want to seize that piece of terrain. This is all done in secret. You do not tell your opponent. You write these down, and then you reveal them at the end of the game. And for that, if your chosen hero is alive at the end of the game, you score 1 point. If he is alive and suffer no wounds, you score 3 instead. And then you've got the enemy. If you score 1 wound on them, 1 or more wound, you score 1 victory point on your assassination target. If you kill them, you get 3. And if you have more models in the selected piece of scenery in your opponent's board edge than they do, then you score 1. If they have no models but you do in that selected piece of scenery, you get 3. And you score 1 point if enemy force is broken, 3 if you're not broken but they are. Nice and easy. Basically, you want cavalry pretty much in most of these lists. You want something fast that can grab that piece of terrain, and you want some way of killing heroes at a distance, which I would suggest Wraiths. Wraiths are fantastic with this, and some of the good spellcasters can be rather offensive, but they're more defensive. I think Gandalf's got Sorcerer's Plus, so he can do it, but you're more looking at Legolas, who's a sniper, obviously, or Bard. Bard, yes. If you're playing late down and you decide to give him the Wind Lance, he's got the Black Arrow, which basically is a one-shot 50 caliber round that will, re-roll hit rolls and in the way tests, and yeah, it's like strength 10, and it will insta-kill them if they fail their fate. So you can chip away at their fate any way you see fit on your assassination target. And for the guy you want to defend, I'd highly suggest not too squishy. So don't go for the first thought, someone who's not going to be in combat, I'm going to pick my Heirloom Taskmaster. Nope, your Heirloom Taskmaster is very easy to kill, and your opponent's probably picked him anyway because he's easy to kill. So you'll give him double points. I'd probably pick someone relatively tough, at least got 2 points of fate, 3 wounds ideally. There are a few heroes that are very good at this. The Undying is insanely good, as the name suggests. Obviously, if you're running Barad-dûr and you've only got Sauron, he's insanely hard to kill because he comes back to life when you get into 0. And he doesn't count as slain because he's not removed from the battlefield, as far as I'm aware. If I'm wrong, do correct me. But yeah, and there's a few other heroes that are pretty solid. But they're the main 2 that stick out. Also, anyone with elven cloaks, so even a hobbit. I know I said don't pick something squishy, but something squishy that can hide is ideal. So you can have, literally, Frodo Baggins, Bilbo Baggins, anyone with an elven cloak that can just sod off and hide somewhere. And you don't really need them for the battle anyway, because they cost no points. Okay? Even Gollum, just don't make him invisible, but he doesn't have an elven cloak. The only problem with making him invisible is the enemy can control him and start pulling them towards where you don't want them to be. And then the final scenario, Storm the Camp. Probably one of my least favourite ones, just because it can be cheesed so hard, in my opinion. And you can have some horrific matchups. And I've gone against people who have had really bad matchups with me. I was playing a relatively elite army, against a relatively elite army, should I say, with Goblin Town. And I just swarmed him. That's literally all I'd do. Put him on the back foot straight away and swarm him and just let him break me. And I'm already in his camp. It's ridiculous. But let's go straight into how you play it. Scenario, you've basically got a 12-inch bubble in your corners. Okay, and you have to fit your entire army in there. You still do warband, and any models that can't fit come in at the start of your next movement phase in the same corner. The battle lasts until one force has been reduced to 25% of its starting number. And victory points, the important thing. You score 3 victory points if your force managed to capture your opponent's camp. If your force managed to capture your opponent's camp and your camp is not captured, you score 6. it's going to be very hard to come back from a 6-point lead. So your opponent will suffer there if you do run a horde army. If you cause 1 or more wound to the enemy leader, you score 1. Kill him, you get 3. You score 1 victory point if the enemy force is broken at the end of the game. And if your force is not broken, you score 3. So like I said, okay, you want a relatively fast army, or you just spam the hell out of Heroic March and use War Drums. Which I did with Goblin. I literally Heroic Marched with like all my Goblin captains, because that's all they're good for. And you've got the Goblin Scribe that can chuck Goblins in there as well, because Goblins coming from board edges. It's really silly. Yeah. Basically, to capture the opponent's camp, you just need to outnumber how many enemy models are in their own camp. So, cheap as chips, warriors. It doesn't matter who they've got in their camp. They can have King Elisar in there. They can have, Treebeard. It doesn't matter. If I've got 3 goblins and you've got Treebeard, I still capture your camp. So, yeah, this is my point. It can be cheesed. A heavily mounted list, so a fully mounted Rohan list will be very good at this as well. It'll be a bit more elite, but you can literally storm their camp as quickly as you can. Or you can pull them out, wait for them to get to near your camp, and you can engage them with half your force. The rest of your force goes around behind them and grabs their camp. So yeah, for this scenario, I'd go with a horde faction. Without a doubt. You want boots on the ground. You want numbers. Yeah, that's it really. And literally, the cheesiest tactic in the world, if you see you outnumber your enemy by quite a bit, or, at least a quarter more than they have, yeah, you just charge as quickly as you can, jump into their camp, get everyone into their camp as possible, keep your leader at a good safe distance, and just break yourself against them in their camp. And then you'll score 6 victory points, and the max they can get is 3, and you've won the game. So, that's it. That is my how to win the scenarios. Let me know in the comment section what you think down below. Let me know which is your favourite scenario to play and which is your least favourite. Or maybe even a scenario that you think needs work from GW. Because I'd love to know your opinion. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, do hit the like button. And if you're feeling especially saintly today, do hit the subscribe button. Even if you don't do either of those things, I still hope you have an absolutely fantastic day, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.